What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by only one Titan this week. That's right, Jurg will not be with us this week. He actually has an actual job, the one that requires his presence on a daily basis. However, Dame is still here. Dame, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well, doing well. Almost football season. Uh, Not that much news, but little roster construction, NFL news there, some baseball news. So I'm doing well.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for actually handling the rundown this week. That's right. We have football news to talk about, a bunch of stuff, and we also have a pretty significant, thing to talk about in the baseball world. Because a certain somebody got hurt last night. Was it Dame or was it a few nights ago?
Yeah,
Okay, so
last night.
last night. I say we start off with the MLB news, and then we'll transition to the NFL world. Starters are being named. Certain people are being left out. Trades happening. People retiring all that stuff in the NFL world. So we're going to talk about basically like what's happened the last week since we last recorded. So yeah, sound good, Dame?
Yes, sir.
Okay, MLB news to start off. Dame, the greatest baseball player of all time, Shohei Ohtani. A
Wow.
UCL tear, was it?
Yeah, UCL tear.
Yeah. You could talk more about this. Usually, you and Jurg kind of handle the baseball news, but obviously, this is significant. I mean, Angels, man, what a franchise. Best player in the world gets hurt, Dame. What does this mean for baseball? What does this mean for the Angels? What does this mean for Shohei Ohtani going forward? Talk to me.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest story here is what it means for Otani. Obviously, he's a free agent at the end of the year, and that's what everyone's been talking about since last season ended. To be honest. People were talking about, are they going to trade him because they're probably not going to re-sign him because he wants to win. They could afford him obviously, but he just wants to win, and obviously that wasn't happening with the Angels. So most likely than not, he was going to leave the Angels. I still think he does, but yesterday was, I think, a massive hit to the contract he's going to be getting. Before this injury, before this, people were predicting he'd be nearing $500-600 million uh, for, I don't know, like 10 years, 12 years, whatever the case may be. That he was going to set like crazy records that players may never break again in the contracts because he's so unique, being able to pitch and hit, and both at elite levels as well. That now the fact that he tore his UCL, which requires Tommy John surgery for pitchers, which something that he already had. It's a surgery he already had. If for people that aren't really big on baseball and don't know what Tommy John surgery is and a torn UCL, a UCL is basically an ACL of the knee of the elbow. So just imagine a basketball or a football player tearing the ACL. That's basically what Otani just did. And this is the second time doing it. I think he did it his second year in the MLB, where he sat out like a year and a half, and that's what it is for pitchers. Usually a year and a half recovery. Um, for hitters, it's less because obviously you could still swing the bat. Um, Most recently, a star player that had Tommy John surgery was Bryce Harper. He obviously didn't sit out a year and a half. Sat out parts of last year and parts of the start of this year. I think that's what Otani will do. I think he won't be ready to start the season next year if he opts to have surgery, which makes sense. Which doesn't make sense why he wouldn't. Um, but yeah, I mean, I still think he's gonna get a massive contract because of the hitter he is. But clearly, he's just not gonna be pitching if for long, if not ever. I was always under the belief that this thing wasn't sustainable to do both positions full time. It's just there's a reason people haven't ever done it. Like it's just like the human body isn't built to be able to do both and be fully healthy doing it. So I just thought whoever was going to give him that massive contract, which at the same time he does deserve because he's so unique, was going to kind of regret it because I thought he was going to get hurt eventually, and clearly it happened before he hit free agency. But I still think he'll get probably like a $300-400 million contract. I think the max that he'll get is around what Aaron Judge got. I think Aaron Judge got 9 for 360. I think something in that range is what Tani will be getting because obviously he's not going to be getting $600 million when he can't pitch. The reason he was evaluated at like a $600 million contract is because he's basically two elite players, a $300 million pitcher, $300 million hitter, but now he's kind of just one. Um, so yeah, I feel awful for Ohtani. I feel awful for baseball. Everybody wanted to see Ohtani be successful and do both for a very long time, and I'm sure people wanted to see the kind of numbers that he would break in free agency, which he still very well might, but I just don't think it would be smart. But yeah, it's an awful day for baseball, awful day for Ohtani, and it's still a lot to be seen. Like I said, if you'll have the surgery, if he'll just commit to just hitting for the rest of his career, or is he going to try to battle back from this and still pitch and hit full time. So there's still a lot to be seen, but it definitely affects his free agency going forward. It's not like it happened a year and a half out of free agency. It literally happened 2 months before free agency starts. So he lost a lot of money yesterday. I'm not gonna lie, but I still think he'll be paid a lot though.
When I read the news, I was like, "Holy shit, bro! Like that changes so much going forward." I feel awful for him. Yeah, I think like he's the face of baseball right now. This is probably the worst thing that could happen for them. Um, for the Angels, though, Dame, didn't they try to go all in at the trade deadline, just like to make win now moves? And
Kinda,
now,
yeah. They traded for what I would say was the best pitcher probably on the trade market, Louis Giolito from the White Sox. I think they gave up like two top five prospects for that. I think they made another trade as well, but the most shocking thing they did was like a week ago. The MLB draft happens in the middle of the season, which is pretty stupid in my opinion. So the draft happened, I think, in June, and then the Angels obviously drafted a guy, I think like 11th overall or ninth overall, something like that, and they already brought him up last week, which is like uncalled for. In baseball, it usually takes a guy like 2 to 3 years to come up. And the league guys 2 years at least in the minors. They need time to develop, get used to like the professional aspect of baseball. But they brought this guy up within like 2 months, was uncalled for. But clearly they were trying to make a push to make it into the playoffs to see what they can do and show Ohtani that they are serious about being a winning team in the future. So this takes for the I think it's arguable who is a more of a loss here, is it Ohtani or is it the Angels? But I think both parties lose massively in this situation.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people agree with your thoughts. I'm pretty sure Jurg would agree as well. Um, yeah, man. I just prayers up for Otani. Obviously, the greatest baseball player we've ever seen, in my humble opinion, of course. This just sucks. It sucks for baseball. And, I think the playoffs are right around the corner. So, what a damper in the mood, for our MLB fans. But, yeah, we move on to the NFL world. Dame, a bunch of shit has happened. What do you want to start off with? What do you think is like the leading candidate here?
Let's start with the Trey Lance news.
Okay, so Trey Lance, obviously, to give some background, the 49ers, was it 2021, I believe, when you got drafted? Um,
Yeah,
gave up three first rounders to move up to the top three to draft Trey Lance at three. I think, they obviously wanted to move on from Jimmy G. Second game, he gets injured. He's out for the season. Obviously, it's a pretty severe injury. It basically derails his career for the time being. Fast forward to now, and we are at the point where the 49ers have named Brock Purdy as their starting QB. And yesterday, because we're recording on Thursday, they have named Sam Darnold as QB2, which means Trey Lance is QB3, which basically means he's probably not going to play. And yeah, he's just, not in the 49ers plans. So obviously a lot to talk about here. We're close friends with a 49ers fan. Would have loved to got his perspective. He's a Trey Lance fan, but maybe there's some bias there. Dame, there's a lot of things that could be said now. I've heard that like Trey Lance, I've read that Trey Lance has been struggling in practices and uh, training camp and all that stuff. I do think the media has been a little bit weird with this because I feel like they've been overly harsh on Trey Lance. Like I understand like he may not be like fine tuned at the moment, but I just feel like I just feel like they've overemphasized like his struggles a lot more for some particular reason. I don't know why, but clearly there's no plans for him. I mean, this is a bad look on the Niners because I mean, you traded so much capital to get him, to move up for him, and now like you kind of write him off. And I know hindsight is 2020, and a lot of people are playing the look who like got drafted after him game. I mean, you could always say that, but Yeah, like the 49ers, I always thought like they're too good to have a quarterback that needs a little bit time. Like they're in win now mode. I never understood that. Like I understand Trey Lance is talented, but like they don't have time to kind of wait for a QB to develop, right? And like they just need like a quarterback that's good enough. Like Purdy, obviously, like I think people think a little too highly of him sometimes, but he's good enough to manage. Like you just need to be good enough to manage for the Niners because they're already a really good team. So they thought that I guess Trey Lance wasn't good enough. Looks bad on them. Um, I just think they moved on too quickly. Darnold being number two, that's hilarious because we're both Jets fans. So the fact that he's QB2, and there are going to be times where I think he does like end up being a starter for them for some games for the 49ers. Yeah, and for Trey Lance, I mean, I feel awful for him. Like, I think he might. I don't think he was at practice. I believe because I think they had Fred Warner come out. I think it was today, and he was like, "I didn't see Trey Lance." I'm like, "Wow, they're sending in Fred Warner to like take the heat early," but um, to kind of dodge questions and answer stuff like a true politician. But this also means inevitably that I think he's going to get traded. I think that was like the first thing on everyone's minds. Dame, obviously, you could talk about the news, talk about Trey Lance being benched. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on him individually? And what are your thoughts on the 49ers kind of botching this? And to make things a little interesting, I think, how about we both give a few teams where we both give a few teams who we think could trade for Trey Lance. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so for your thoughts first and foremost.
So obviously the Niners drafted Trey Lance third overall. They gave up a lot to get him, and you see the graphics of who was drafted with those picks. I think it was like Jalen Waddle. Then they traded the two other picks for like Bradley Chubb and Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's like ridiculous. And to be honest, in my opinion, it's like one of the worst trades in NFL history because he hasn't worked out. And I don't want to hear that like he wasn't given a chance or whatever the case may be. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive wizard, and really he makes the like average quarterbacks look great. You see with Jimmy G, you see with Brock Purdy. These guys aren't super talented dudes. Trey Lance is more talented than both of those guys, and Kyle Shanahan still wasn't able to make him work. And I get he didn't get many opportunities in regular season, but Kyle Shanahan and his offensive staff get to see Trey Lance each and every single day in training camp and practices, and they just decided that he isn't worth taking a chance on to put him in a game. So I think that tells you more than all these people that are saying he didn't get a chance in regular season games. If Kyle Shanahan sees him every single day and doesn't like what he sees and doesn't think he deserves a chance in a game, I think we're gonna go with Kyle Shanahan says, not people what people see on Twitter. Um, but for the Niners, I mean Brock Purdy obviously a starter. I'm not a big fan of Brock Purdy. I think he was kind of lightning in the bottle. Sam Darnold as a QB2, I think eventually he'll end up starting some games, like you said, because I think Brock Purdy they kind of will see that he has he has a high floor, but he doesn't have a high ceiling. Kind of really like Jimmy G, but I think he's just worse than Jimmy G. So I think Sam Darnold they'll eventually throw in Sam Darnold to kind of change things up because I think Sam Darnold can do more than Brock Purdy can. Maybe he's just a little like slow. It takes him longer to process like plays and stuff like that, and his decision making isn't as good as Brock Purdy. So I think eventually they'll be mixing those two quarterbacks. As for Trey Lance's future, I think he will get traded. I mean, there's no point in keeping him if he's not even your backup, especially since he probably has some value around the league because he was such a high pick and he was so talented. Teams will take a chance on him. If I had to name a couple teams, top of my head, I'd go with the Bucks. I think the Bucks you just
Mm.
can't get worse than Baker and Kyle Trask. And like, I mean, why not? Like, you have the team around the quarterback to be successful. Obviously, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rasheed White, a good offensive line, a stout defense. If you bring a guy like Trey Lance, maybe you don't start him right away, but by midseason, if he once he gets acclimated to like the team, the playbook, and all that, you give him a chance midseason. Since you probably won't be competing. Other than that, maybe the Falcons. That's another team. A lot of talent around the quarterback position, but having been able to bring that guy in, why not take a chance there? I mean, with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson, adding a guy with the talent and capabilities of Trey Lance, if he can work out and they could maybe find something there to fine tune and bring out all the potential that he does have, that could be a scary situation as well. Um, Other than that, I'm off the top of my head, can't really think of anything in the AFC. Maybe I mean the Raiders would just be funny, backing up Jimmy G again. Let's see who else is there. I mean, Steelers are kind of on Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Patriots maybe like if, but
Mm.
like did Bill Belichick have the patience to teach a guy that's so like raw and not
He's already had
really.
Mac Jones for like the last few years. I
Yeah,
don't know
like
if he'll be
Mac
patient.
Jones is he likes these Bill Belichick likes these game managers. He doesn't like guys that kind of go off script, and that's what Trey Lance is made like that's what he made his name of, is making things off script and out of the pocket and running the ball and stuff. Like Bill Belichick likes you within the lines, make the throw in the pocket, and that's it. You go what the play says for you to go, not like off it. So I think the Bucks and the Falcons are definitely my top two kind of contenders to get him.
I think the Bucks are interesting. I just think it's just I can't see the Bucks doing it yet. I just feel like they just decided on Baker as their starter like a few days ago. They're kind of in a weird position because I do agree with you. I think Lance would fit well with them because I do think after this year they're going to go full rebuild because they're just not going to be good this year. I think Trey Lance would be a decent like quarterback for like a rebuilding team. That's where Trey Lance probably fits best, like a rebuilding team. One team I did see that I thought was interesting because I think it's like I think he may be from there. I just got to fact check that. Minnesota Vikings, I believe. I know he'd be a backup to Kirk Cousins, but I also think Kirk Cousins is on borrowed time with that team as well. So for me, I thought Bucks is pretty decent. I think the Vikings are interesting. But like I agree with you. The first team I thought of right away when I was like, okay, he could get traded is the Falcons because like Desmond Ritter I think is like probably like top two worst quarterback, like top two worst starting quarterback in the NFL. So, and look, the Falcons have a lot of talent, and like I'm sorry, but if I'm gonna you know choose between Lance or Ritter, I'm going with Trey Lance. And Trey Lance, I think with if you give him Drake London, give him Bijan Robinson, give him Kyle Pitts, you got some weapons there, man. Like he could do some damage. I feel like, and but I don't know. It's just like I feel like the leading candidates for him are these teams that are like kind of stuck in the middle that want to win. But if you want to win, do you want to kind of take a gamble at Trey Lance? You don't. I don't know. I don't know how this works. I mean, the Cardinals maybe.
The thing with the Cardinals, like we
They're trying to
mentioned this
lose.
on, yeah, it's they're fully in on Caleb Williams, and regardless, I don't think the Niners will trade him in division. Like even if
Yeah,
the
you're right. You're
Cardinals
right.
weren't that bad, but those two reasons,
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah. I think the Niners are just gonna take what they could get at this point, and they're just gonna go with the best available package. So yeah, Trey Lance will get traded. I believe he'll probably get traded by next week. To be honest, I think teams have already called. But all good luck to him, bro. Like I do think like given a chance, he could be pretty good in this league. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's move on to some other news because there's some other players on the trade market. Trade rumors actually, because actually a player did get traded. But we'll talk about the bigger name first, who's actually in trade rumors. Jonathan Taylor. Um, you know the Colts front office is just a joke. There was and then Taylor I think requested a trade. I think the owner or the GM, I don't know who it was, Dame, you could like correct me on this, but they're just like, we're not trading Jonathan Taylor. And then a few days ago, it's revealed that, they're looking to trade him or they gave him permission or something to seek out trades or some shit like that. Um, but basically, it's confirmed that he's on the trade market. So clearly, one of the top running backs in the league. Dame, we're in I don't know what to call it, but it's not a good time to be a running back in the NFL. So I don't think the Colts are going to get what they want. They're not. You're not getting a first rounder. You're just not in 2023 for a running back. So I think what you kind of brought this up in the chat. It's like they'd have to get a package. You think that they're going to accept a package that's similar to the one that the Panthers got from the 49ers for Christian McCaffrey. I don't think they'll get that. I do think he'll get traded before the season starts. Now, in terms of which teams I could see trading for him, I've seen the Cowboys. I think they're going to trade him to the NFC. I don't think they're going to trade him to the AFC. So I think they're going to trade him to anyone in the NFC. I've seen the Cowboys there. I know you got Tony Pollard, but I mean Jonathan Taylor I think is better than Tony Pollard. So anytime you can improve your team that wants to win now, I mean, why not go for it? My personal opinion, who I think he would like fit in well with, who I think could use him, is the Seattle Seahawks. I think he would be perfect for the Seahawks. Obviously, that's an NFC team. And I think the Seahawks, we talked about this in previous episodes, one of the four best teams, in my humble opinion, in the NFC. Talked about the Eagles, the Cowboys, the 49ers, and I think the Seahawks are like in that tier as well. Not they're like tier two, right? But I mean, that team's got weapons because we already talked about the wide receiver core and DK, Tyler Lockett, and JSN. You have Kenneth Walker as your running back. I think they could use improvement on that running back position, and I think Jonathan Taylor would be nuts. JSN already got hurt, I believe, in one of the games. He's getting wrist surgery, so I think he'll be out for like to start off the season. I feel like Jonathan Taylor, my God, and it would help like relieve the pressure off of Geno Smith. Like he doesn't have to I just feel like a running back is a quarterback's best friend, and Jonathan Taylor on that team I think would fit seamlessly. I think Pete Carroll would do wonders with him. So Taylor, that would give the Seahawks, like a new dynamic to their offense, which I think could be explosive anyway. So that's what I think. That's the team that I think is best suited for Jonathan Taylor. I don't know who would trade for. Like I don't. You could tell me who you think is going to trade for him, but I think the Seahawks would be the best fit for him. I know the Chiefs been floated around there, but again, it's an AFC team. So I don't think the Colts will trade him. In conference, but yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of teams that could use a running back, especially Jonathan Taylor. I know there's like injury concerns and all that, but you take the risk on him, and like right now he's cheap, and I just think you get him to a winning environment because like there's been a lot of noise with the Colts these past 2 seasons. Get him to like a new environment, fresh. Maybe trade him to like a winner. I think things will work out. He seems like a decent dude, so I don't think like he'll be like a slut with like the contract negotiations because he's eventually going to want to get paid. But I don't know what's going to go on with the running back situation in the NFL. So, Dame, your thoughts on the Jonathan Taylor situation and teams that you could see him possibly being traded to?
Yeah, it's like the owner there just despises him. I mean, he publicly comes out and says that he can't pay him, but he won't trade him. And the next day after those comments, he talks about how he's going to pay $20 million to move a fucking whale across the country. It's just bad PR, and whoever's PR guy needs to be fired because, I mean, what this guy just looks so bad, and it reflects badly around the NFL. Like players just aren't going to want to play for him. But yeah, they let him seek out a trade, and I don't know. I don't know what that really means because it doesn't look like they're looking to trade him, but they're like, oh, see what you can go get. See who'll give you a contract because we're not giving it to you because that's what the running back market is. And if you want to go see if someone will pay you all that money, go ahead. Damn well knowing that no one's going to give him a contract. But so whoever's trading for Taylor might be kind of looking at a rental thing. I don't know how Taylor feels about that. Maybe if it's like a winning team, like you kind of mentioned the Chiefs, maybe he'll go for that because he goes on that team. Obviously, with Patrick Mahomes is going to make his job a lot easier. He's going to be winning. He'll be playing in the playoffs. He'll have more exposure, and then maybe come the offseason, he'll be able to get a big contract. Um, a package that I do think is what they will get is the McCaffrey package, which wasn't a first, but I think it was like a second rounder, and like 2/3 or something like that. Which at the end of the day is kind of equivalent to a first, but no one is going to give a first by itself. They just aren't going to do it. It's just too high of a pick for running back. But I still think at the end of the day they'll get less than what they got from McCaffrey because McCaffrey was on the contract already. It's not like he was going to be a rental. He was there for the next like 3 years, I think. Although it was a lot of money, they knew he was locked in. And I just think McCaffrey's better than Jonathan Taylor. He's a better runner, better catcher, I think. And if I had to think of a team right now, if I just had one team, I think it'd just be the Eagles. See, they've been in the news a lot. Them and the Dolphins have seemed like the two teams that have been at the top of the market for him. And I just think the Eagles somehow, some way, always when they're in the rumors for something, they somehow always get it done. So DeAndre Swift, so AJ Brown. It's just they seem to always just get it done when they're interested in something, and I think they'll get it done here. I mean, they don't need their picks. They're loaded from top to bottom, from every part of the defense to every part of their offense. They have young guys, they have veterans, they have all they need. So why not pay like second round pick, third round pick, whatever it is, without giving up your first and go get Jonathan Taylor, arguably the best running back in the NFL, to put next to Jalen Hurts on an offense that already has AJ Brown, Devontae Smith on the outside. I mean, that'd be nearly unstoppable and scary for the rest of the league. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Supposedly they gave him until Tuesday to find something. If not, they're moving on and they're just gonna go with what they got and not gonna move him. But if I had to guess, I do think he'll get traded and I do think he'll be moved. Whether it's to the Eagles or not, I think it will happen before Tuesday.
Damn, Eagles is interesting. The thing is like their picks would suck. I don't know. And like they
Yeah.
have, like you said, they have DeAndre Swift. I don't know. I can't see that happening. That'd be OP if you go to the Eagles. I've seen. Oh man, this team could definitely use a running back, but I hope they don't get him. But and I don't know what they would offer. But the Bills,
Yeah, that's a good one. But like Stephon Diggs is already frustrated there. You're gonna bring
yeah,
another guy that's frustrated.
that's a good point.
And they've kind of already they've been publicly saying how much they love James Cook and how much they want to give him the full load. So I don't know how Brandon Johnson Taylor might do. But I mean, after seeing the Jets bring in Dalvin Cook, I mean, you kind of got to
Yeah,
match not only in your conference with the Bengals and Chiefs, but you got to match what's going on in your division too, because the Dolphins are interested in Jonathan Taylor too. So if you let the Dolphins get him in your own division, a team with that many offensive weapons already, like what are you doing to match it or improve as well?
yeah. Man, I hope he does not come to the AFC East. Please no. I don't
Nah,
know.
no.
But I don't think he would if he does get traded. So that's a plus, I guess. All right, let's move on. Speaking of the AFC East, the New York Jets are in the news. Um, Corey Davis, wide receiver that they signed a few years ago, retired from the NFL at age 28. Now, this news came out of nowhere. However, if you read the tea leaves, if you kind of like picked up on clues, he hasn't been with them like the last few weeks. Yet, like he hasn't been at practice, hasn't been at the preseason games. It was reported that there was an illness he was dealing with, but it seems that he's dealing with something that's a lot more major because I don't think he would just retire at age 28 like that. So I think we can speak for all of us here at SS Summit Sports. Hopefully everything's all good with him, just personally speaking, because I like that's a pretty major decision to just walk away from football at a young age and just kind of leaving millions on the table. So it has to be something serious. So hopefully all is well with Corey Davis. Prayers up if needed. So speaking on the Jets though, so I think after Garrett Wilson, we talked about this. It's kind of like a toss up as to like you know the pecking order normally would be Wilson at wide receiver one, Lazard is wide receiver two, and then wide receiver three would be up in the air, right? They have McCole Hardman, so they had Corey Davis, they have McCole Hardman. I thought for sure, not for sure, but I thought Corey Davis would be their wide receiver three, just because like you need like a deep ball threat there. I'm not saying he's the ideal wide receiver three. However, now that he's gone, I think there is a gap though in the wide receiver core for the Jets because that means McCole Hardman is your wide receiver three, or maybe I'm missing someone, Dame, if someone else is being considered for wide receiver three. But after Lazard and Wilson, especially after Wilson, but like it's a crapshoot, bro. And like Lazard as your wide receiver two is not ideal. So Jets, I think obviously they're in a division, they're in a death division, and I'm glad that they got Dalvin Cook because they were just you need talent, bro. But it's like you kind of lose an option at the wide receiver core, at the wide receiver position. And I know like it was Corey Davis, he wasn't anything crazy, but still I do think for the Jets because you're devoid of talent, it's always good to have options and depth, especially the wide receiver position because like, you know, Aaron Rodgers is going to want to sling the ball, bro. So and when the fucking pressure is all on Garrett Wilson, you're going to have to move the ball around. And like do I trust Alan Lazard? Really good player, but like not all the time. So I don't know. I don't know. This kind of puts a little thing, like a little cloud over the Jets. However, I do think that Corey Davis, my thought process is that he's like kind of been in communication with Joe Douglas and Coach Sala to a point where I think that they thought they knew this was coming. So I'm gonna assume because I think Joe Douglas is a really good GM, he might have something up his sleeve because he's had time to prepare for this. I'm seeing a lot of, Jets Twitter being unrealistic with some trade options. Now, look, I do think down the line, certain wide receiver targets could, be on the market. But for right now, right before the season starts, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It would have to be like someone that's like still not signed to a team. But yeah, Dame, what'd you make of this news?
I mean, it was shocking. I was golfing yesterday and just randomly got the news. I was stunned. Probably threw off my game a little bit. But I thought the Jets had a pretty solid receiver group with Corey Davis, and just by losing him, I think it puts it in question. Like you said, it was Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and then it was just a bunch of question marks. I don't even think Alan Lazard is that great of a two. So if you have Alan Lazard as your two, I think you need good depth behind that. And now you just have McCall Hardman and like Randall Cobb, which isn't the greatest. And the worst part is it's so late in the offseason that there really isn't many options to kind of upgrade there. They're not trained for Mike Evans. They're not trained for Devontae Adams. So people need to stop that nonsense. I don't know what free agents are out there off the top of my head. It's like Sammy Watkins, JJ Arcega White, and like Julio Jones, which none of those guys are going to be viable options to replace Corey Davis. But like you said, clearly he had to have something going on. It's not like I'm pissed that Corey Davis retired. How could he do so? It's clearly he had some things going on because he walked away from $10.5 million and catching balls from Aaron Rodgers. Clearly there's something more going on there than just football. So like praise up to him, whatever he's dealing with. But as for the Jets, I think they're a bit of a tricky situation here because God forbid one of these guys gets injured, whether it's Lazard or Garrett Wilson, like they're really fucked. Like poor Rodgers, he's really gonna have to deal with that. And then even if a guy becomes available, teams will know that the Jets are desperate and they're gonna drive the price up. So I think Joe Doug's gonna have to get creative here and maybe make some calls that people to teams that maybe didn't think their wide receiver was available or wanted to trade him, and Joe Douglas just kind of convinces them to make the move because they're really an injury away from absolute disaster. And clearly, this is a team that's all in this season. You see what the trade of Aaron Rodgers, you see him bringing all Aaron Rodgers' guys, bringing a guy like Dalvin Cook in when they already have Brees Hall. Like this team is all in this season. And if they take any other hits to this wide receiver group, it's going to be a disaster. So I hope he does something. I'm not expecting anything. Just got to pray that no one gets hurt and the wide receiver core is what it is. And other guys that you don't expect to step up, step up.
Man, what a time to be a Jets fan. This can never be peaceful, of course. Uh, okay, so a trade did happen this morning, I believe. Isaiah Simmons traded to the New York Giants for, I believe, a seventh rounder. Simmons, I believe, didn't pan out for the Cardinals. Cardinals are just selling right now; they don't care. Um, so Simmons, I think some might consider him underwhelming in his time in Arizona. However, I do think for the Giants, this is a low risk, high reward, only for a seventh rounder. I think the Giants defense right now, I just think you needed to change the scenery, and the Giants they're a pretty decent team now. Defense is already good, and I think it just gets better, to be honest. I believe he does have a connection with someone from the coaching staff on the Giants, right, Dame?
That I can't confirm or deny. I have no idea.
Okay. But I do think Simmons could be very useful to the Giants, and I think, there's a little bit of a extra motivation added to him. So the fact that a change of scenery from a team that's probably going to be like the worst team in the NFL to a team that's on the come up in the Giants. So I think for him it's like it's rejuvenation. So I do think we'll get like an increase, and I think he'll be like better than what he's been years previous. So and for the Giants, like this is good, bro. Like this is their defense again already stacked. This is a plus for them in my opinion. So they get stronger at what they're good at. They're a sleeper team in my opinion. They're not going to win the division, but they're still a sleeper team. Like I don't think teams are going to want to play the Giants. And this is pretty simple for the Cardinals. They're just selling. They just they'll just take any draft compensation they could get. So Dame, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't much to say about this. It's a no brainer for the Giants. Yeah, but seventh round pick for a guy that was a top 10 player in the draft when he was drafted. He was a beast in Clemson, but then didn't really transition well to NFL. Didn't know if he was a linebacker or safety, and just wasn't able to commit to one position. They just kind of focus on that. Maybe that got in his head. But you mentioned the connection with the Giants coaching staff. I'm not aware of it, but I'm sure there probably is if they're willing to take a risk on him. They probably like, oh, he's familiar with Isaiah Simmons in his game. Maybe a college connection, whatever the case may be. He'll bring the best out of him and bring out that potential that we saw at Clemson. So for the Giants, no brainer. For the Cardinals, I mean, feel like you could have got more for a guy that was the top 10 pick in the draft. But I guess kind of for them getting rid of the money as well and bringing a 7th round pick is just kind of a flyer. So just to get rid of him and maybe even tank even more just in case he does break down the Cardinals, they're like, oh, whoa, relax. We don't want to win games here. But yeah, no brainer for the Giants and for the Cardinals, I guess. Yeah, like you said, just literally getting rid of anything they have.
Oh, Wink Martindale.
Oh, that's their defensive coordinator. What's the connection though? Does it say?
Like I just know, I just read that they had a connection, and I believe like when Wink Martindale like views him very highly. I think maybe coming out of the draft he had him high. I think that's what I read on Twitter. So he had him high in his
Yes, I
rankings.
remember seeing something like that. That he was high on him during the draft. Yes.
So there you go. He's gonna go to an organization that believes in him. Obviously, you know that's just a plus in itself. So good for him. He goes to the Giants, a marquee team, defensive coach who believes in you, and it's already a stacked defense. So I think winners all around here. If you want to call the Cardinals a winner at this point, just me, they're just ensuring that first pick. So
They won't be hearing that phrase for a while.
yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't think we have much else to talk about. 38 minutes so far recording. Dame, fantasy connoisseur over here. I mean, it's almost fantasy season for you, and I guess for me
I
too.
already
But
had a draft, but yeah, fantasy week. Fantasy week is next week.
how
Starts
many drafts
Sunday. A
have you
lot of
had?
drafts are coming. I draft Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
That's it.
Saturday again,
There's more. Wow,
and then I have a huge draft like the day before the season.
that's like what 5, 6 drafts, bro. Jesus, dog.
Relax.
Well, me, you relax, bro. Fucking 6 drafts. Well, one of the drafts you have, I'm involved in.
Mayhem in that league. Mayhem. 13 out of like first 16 picks have been traded already,
Just pure
which is
anarchy.
uncalled for.
Well, we made a trade actually. Funny
Yes, we
enough.
did.
Yeah, I mean,
Rumor around the league has it that Chris got me. That's the rumor.
wow. Who the hell said that? Wow. What are we doing
It's
here?
people.
What?
But
I mean,
I
okay.
think I got what I wanted.
No, exactly, and that's all that matters.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
literally.
not in like I can't. I'm not involved in this shit to a point where I know what's a fleece and what's not. But also, Dame, you're villain number one in like a lot of fantasy leagues,
No,
so
no,
people
no,
just say
no,
that.
not this year. Man, he's like the number one villain
Really?
across
Why?
leagues. He just talks. I don't talk. I just live, and that's why people hate me. Manny
Nice.
actually speaks, and that's why people.
They hated Jesus too, right, Dame?
Exactly.
All right. I mean, I don't know. You don't have any first round picks in this draft that
Not
we're in,
in
right?
this league. No. In 10-man leagues, I technically would have a first round pick. But
Yes, yes, yes.
Our league, with our like boys, it's an 8-man, and I have the 9th pick.
Okay.
Where I have options. So
You
we'll
do.
see where
You
that
do.
goes. Rumor has it the draft starts at 8. A lot of the top 7 picks are kind of locked in. I had a conversation with some buddies yesterday. The top 7 picks are mostly locked in. Draft starts at 8.
Okay. I don't know 6 and 7, so you're gonna have to fill me in on that after off mic. 8 is what? It's Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be a wild card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he has a lot of options.
Yep. And I kind of like that we don't know what's gonna happen in that
Yeah,
last.
I
pick.
told him not to like spill it. Just let it be a draft day secret since we already have basically the top 7.
That is true. That is true, man. Man, some people may like criticize you for not having a first round pick, and at first I was like, man, like, well, how do you not want your first round pick? But depth does matter. I fully like came to that realization,
Yeah,
bro.
he came to the same realization too. That's
He
how
did,
traded his
but he's
first.
got 2.
No, oh you were behind the pack. He traded his 3rd overall yesterday.
Oh my god! All right, I have a lot to catch up on. Okay,
He only
okay.
has 6 now. Matt has 3 and 5.
What? Okay, so I might not get my guy. Oh fuck.
No, you are. He's not taking the guy you want.
Who's he taking? All right, whatever. We'll talk about this, offline because people,
Same Chase.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm just stunned right now. There's a lot of things going through my mind right now.
You don't get the notifications when the trades happen.
No, bro. No, bro. I have
you gotta
another
turn on your
guy.
notifications.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can make this fantasy talk a little bit more consistent throughout the season when there's a little bit of a dry week. So we figured we might as well do that since we're like below 45 minutes. Yeah, that'll do it for this week. What an episode. Pretty short and sweet. And we still covered a lot of, topics. So, yeah, Jurg, we miss you. Jurg will be back next week, of course. I think it's kind of a week by week situation. We just always find out last minute. Dame, phenomenal job as always. Thank you for
Yes,
steering
sir.
the ship with me. To all the listeners listening, you could follow us on somewhat.sports on Instagram. Graphics will be back as the football season starts. We make our weekly picks.
That's fun. We should actually put like a prize at the end.
We
I don't
should,
know.
we should, and I think we could like decide that before the season starts.
Yeah.
You can find us on Spotify. Somewhat sports. You'll find our logo. That'll be us. So you got the YouTube version. You got the Spotify version if you're on the go. And yeah, to all the listeners listening, again, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. And until next time, peace.
Peace.